Welcome to the Ultimate Beginner Quilt Series by Fat Quarter Shop. In this series, I'm going to be showing you how to make a quilt all the way from the start to the finish. This series is sponsored by Moda Fabrics and Eversewn Sewing Machines. I'm going to be giving you lots of tips, and we're going to be building our first quilt together. In today's video, we're going to be working on block 1, which is a simple striped block with 4 fabrics. We're also going to be talking about rotary cutters and preparing your fabrics. So make sure to subscribe to our channel and click the bell to be notified so you can see all of the remaining blocks. Let's get started. For rotary cutters, you have lots of options. You can pick by brand and by size of blade. I like to work with Olfa, so these are Olfa rotary cutters. This is a size 45mm blade. That's what I use on a majority of my cutting. If you want something larger, there's also a 60mm. Within the cutters, there's very basic. This one you can just expose your blade by going up and down. This one is the one that I use, and it has a lock. So if you lock it and then you drop it, your blade is not going to cut you on your foot or something like that. So this is the one I use. And this is the same thing except a larger blade. And I'm going to show you now how you can change your rotary blade. So these are how the rotary blades come. I keep one with an X on it that I put my used blades in. To change your rotary cutter, we're just going to unscrew this. And I like to put it exactly like I take it off. And it's easier to put back on. So there's step 1, step 2, and then I'm going to pull this off the top. I try not to ever touch my blade, so you can just put it in there. And these are my used blades, and then we're going to open a new package. You can buy them in individual, by 5 or by 10, so you can buy different amounts of blades in each package. To put it back together, you just put this back on. I put it on the other side. And then I just put each piece on separately, just like you took it off. The first couple of times you do this, it might be a little funny, but you will get used to it over time. You just want this to be nice and tight, and you can just make sure your blade is on. If you're left-handed, you could put the blade on this side of this rotary cutter to cut left-handed. So let's talk about fabrics. You're going to want to make your quilt with 100% cotton fabric, and using fabric that is quilt shop only is your best way to go, especially for your first quilt. If you buy something at a quilt shop, you're going to have a higher quality fabric. It's going to last longer than something if you bought at a chain store. So there's really 3 options when you're prepping your fabrics. The first option is to just take your fabric straight off the bolt and iron it, and don't do anything else. That's a great option for a beginner. Your second option is to starch, which is what I do, and I'll be showing you that next. That's also a good option if you're new. Adding starch will put a tiny bit of firmness into your fabric, and it makes it easier to cut, and it will fray less with starch. Your third option is to pre-wash your fabric, and I would not recommend that for your first quilt. If you pre-wash, you're going to have a very wrinkly fabric. It's going to fray on the ends, and it's going to have a little bit less stiffness. So the way that I starch my fabric is I like to give it a heavy soak and let it hang dry. I got this method from Lisa Bonjean of Primitive Gatherings. So I am using a firm finish, and you just want it to be nice and even, and you don't want one side to be too heavy and one side to be too light. So here we go. Just nice and even, and I just do this on top of an ironing board. You could iron this dry, it just takes longer than hanging, so I like to just hang dry. If you prepare your fabric by starching, you'll want to starch in a well-ventilated area, or you can starch outside. And then I will just hang this on my drying rack. So you can see my drying rack behind me. And I just let that hang. I let it dry. It usually takes 4 to 8 hours to dry. And if you want to speed that up, you can iron it dry. I just think this saves time because I can just starch it, let it dry, move on to my next project. So that is how I starch my fabrics. So the first step in making your block is to download your free pattern, which is in the description box. And we need 4 cuts that are 3.5 by 12.5. And I'm reading my pattern right here. We're going to label all of them with A's. And what I've done is I have all 4 of my fabrics stacked. We're going to just cut 2 at a time though. So I'm going to move 2 away. Make sure these are nice and flat. We need 4 cuts that are 3.5 by 12.5. So I'm going to get my ruler. The brand that I use is Creative Grids. The reason I use Creative Grids is the grip technology on the back. When you put your ruler, it does not move. And I like the lines. When you're reading a ruler, there are measurements across, horizontally, and vertically. So each little line is an 1/8. So you've got an 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, 3/8, half, 5/8, 3/4, 7/8, and 1 inch. So that's how you read your ruler. On your rotary blade, you'll want to change that after every project. So we just put a fresh blade in. So we're going to take our ruler. I have lined up my selvages together. The selvage is the end of your fabric where there are little dots. You don't want to use this in your sewing machine. It's just the very edge. So we're going to make sure that these don't end up in our blocks, the very edge. So I've got 2 fabrics. If you're a beginner, cutting 2 layers is a good way to start. So I think the best way to do this is to cut a 3.5 inch strip first. So I've got my fabric this direction. I'm going to place my hand on my ruler and I'm going to press pretty firm, open my blade and cut. You're just going to place your blade right against your ruler. I'm going to lock my blade. So I just did a straightening cut and I'm just going to move these little slivers off. And I'm going to try not to move this fabric because this is what I'm cutting with. I'm going to put my ruler on the 3.5 inch line. So I've got 3.5. I'm going to make sure that line goes all the way across the fabric and we're going to cut 1 strip. And then we'll place this to the side to use later in our quilt. And now we need to subcut this into 12.5 inches. So I will just move this slightly, put my ruler on the top edge, and I'm going to cut this off. And whenever you're cutting, you want to make sure that you're cutting through both layers. And then we're going to rotate our fabric gently so it stays together and doesn't move. You don't want your bottom piece to move. And we're going to subcut 12.5 inches. So now I'm using the other side of my ruler and it goes to 12.5 inches. And this is also lined up. So you're going to just cut here. And we have 2 3.5 by 12.5 inch rectangles. I'm going to put them on my design board. Cutting is really important and prepping your fabric is really important, as well as your 1/4 inch seam, because if you cut inaccurately but then you have an accurate 1/4 inch seam, your block is not going to come out right. So now we're going to cut our next 2. So we're going to bring these on, make sure they're nice and there's no wrinkles, just get them nice and flat. And cutting is actually my very favorite part of making my quilt. I would rather just cut all day than sew. I love to cut. So I've got this nice and flat. I'm going to make sure I can see where the bottom is. And again, I'm going to do a straightening line, a straightening cut. So I'll just put my ruler, put my hand nice and firm, and cut. Again, move this fabric off. Line up the 3.5. And you always want to measure twice, cut once. So I'm at the 3.5. I'm going to cut. set this aside. Turn my fabric, and you just want to make sure that your bottom stays tight with the top so that it doesn't get out of order. And if it does get out of order, then you're going to want to take, like for example, if this just gets separated, then what we need to do is cut each individually now. You don't want to try to restack it. So I'm going to cut these individually just to show you that's what you would do. So you're going to take this line, make sure it's lined up, cut, turn your fabric, turn your ruler. You always want to use a ruler when you're cutting. You don't want to use your mat for cutting lines. That will not be as accurate. So you're always going to want to use your ruler when cutting. When you get to borders, that's when you can use your mat. And again, we're going to cut this last cut. And if you're a beginner and you want to cut each piece individually, then that is fine. You can do it however you want to do it. So we've got our 4 cuts. We're going to be using a design board. A design board is basically a foam core board that you can get at the hobby store with batting on top and binding around. We sell them, or you can make one, and we have a video on how to do that. So now I'm going to go back to my design board and place my fabric according to my pattern. And right now this looks pretty easy, but when we get more complicated, this is going to really help. So we have all of this laid out, and I'm going to go ahead and pin before we go to our sewing machine. So I like to use a long, thin 0.5 millimeter pin, but pins are a personal preference. Some people like thicker, some people like longer, some people like shorter. These are the pins I like, and it's okay to try a lot of different brands to see what works best for you because everybody's different. So I'm going to place these 2 fabrics right sides together. These are solid, so there's not really a right or wrong side, but if you had a print, you would pay more attention to that. I'm going to pin on each side. And then I'm going to pin once in the middle and in between. I always use pins, and if you're a beginner, pinning will really help you keep everything nice and even, and you're going to get more accurate results, which will give you more confidence to keep doing more things. So I'm just pinning, and then we are going to go to our sewing machine. So we're stitching with a 1/4 inch seam. Just keep your fabric nice and flush with the edge of your foot. So just pull your pins out as you get to them. And on this next piece, you can just keep sewing. You don't have to cut your thread yet. Just keep sewing. And now we will cut our 2 pieces apart, and we're going to go press. Now, if you see on your pattern there are arrows, that tells you which direction to press, and that's going to become more important as we progress in the pattern so that seams will nest in future blocks. So we're going to press towards the blue and the red. The first thing I'm going to do is I do use steam in my iron, and I'm going to set my seam. Setting your seam just means pressing down flat. You notice I'm not rocking my iron, I'm just pressing flat. And I am going to, I like to finger press first. Finger press that flat towards the red. And then bring your iron and put the crease of your iron, or the edge of your iron, right on the crease. And you see I'm not rocking my iron, I'm just very firm with it. That way I don't stretch my fabric. It's nice and flat, nice and clean on the back. We'll do the same thing on the next one. Set the seam, finger press, and just get this crease really nice. And one of the things that I do see a lot is people don't get this crease nice and flat. And if you don't, you might have a little, you might look like this, and then when you stitch over it, you have a gap. And I call that a duck pleat. So you don't want it ironed where you have a gap in between. You just want it nice and flat. And that's the biggest thing that I see. So now you can see that it's nice and flat. I haven't stretched my fabric. You don't want to do this with your iron. You just want to be very gentle. So now I'm going to refer back to my pattern for color placement. Just like this. I'm going to pin on my ironing board and go and sew this last seam with a 1/4 inch seam. So again, I'm going to pin on the 2 edges, the center, and in between. And just make sure as you're sewing that both fabrics are right up against your foot. So when you're sewing, you don't want to sew like this where all of this is gapping, because then you're not going to have a 1/4 inch, you're not going to have an accurate seam. So you just want to keep it nice and flush with the edge of your foot. So we're going to set this seam again, just nice and flat with a little bit of steam. We're going to press towards the green, so I'm going to get this finger pressed nice and flat and get these really flat. Put the edge of your iron right on that crease. And if you want, you can do an all over press, but I would press up and down instead of this way. And now we can trim off the little edges of our block. So when you're done with your block, you can leave it just like it is, or you can trim the edges where all you're doing is taking the slivers off. That's all personal choice. I like to do it just so my block is nice and tidy. You're going to put your ruler on one of the seams, so it's going to make it nice and square. And we're just getting the little slivers off. And this is all personal preference. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. This is something that I always do though. So when I'm lining it up, I'm lining up the lines so that it's square. And just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit should come off. And this is your block 1 in stripes. I can't wait to see all of the blocks you make. Make sure to tag us on social media and join me next week for block 2.